Hey guys, this is Isaac from Contender Bicycles, and I'm here with Carter and Joseph, and today we're going to be talking e-bikes. We got the opportunity to go down to St. George and test out the SCOR 4060 STZ, and we also got the chance to try out the Santa Cruz Heckler. We were unfortunately not able to take down the Orbea Rise to St. George, but Joseph and I got the opportunity to ride one separately outside of St. George for a pretty long ride. So we also have, we're going to be talking about that bike too. I think start off with the SCOR, probably the newest of the bunch to us at least.
Yeah.
Well, SCOR's whole thing is make fun bikes, and they surely did that. It's a fun bike.
It is.
It's really fun.
Yeah, it definitely like blew through the trail. Like the weight of it with the heavier e-bike battery and just like it being a pretty like long, like decent sized trail bike, you didn't need to turn it. It would just go straight over everything. Like,
That's true.
There's not much thinking involved, but
It ripped.
yeah.
It's loud, as they say,
Wow.
in a good way.
In a good way, for sure. I think the thing with the SCOR that I was honestly kind of surprised with, it's actually, or like most of the e-bikes in general, is how much like fun they were just to throw around. Like they weren't as hard to throw around as you would think they would be, considering how much they weigh. Like in general, those bikes were really awesome. Like you could still throw them around if you wanted to. Of course, it took a little bit more muscle too, but it really wasn't that bad.
Yeah. I also like the 85 Newton meters of torque.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of not having to work at all. Like, the great thing about those bikes is like we were in a little trail system where we could do just some like pretty big hits and then ride back up, and it's a 3-minute uplift on a normal bike, and on the SCOR it was like 45 seconds, and
It was fast.
you're not even breathing hard.
Yeah.
Like it felt awesome.
It made me realize why some people don't like e-bikes on trails because of how fast they were, but at the same time, it made me like them even more. So I was very 50-50. Another thing with that bike I really like to see is that even though it's technically the short travel version of the bike, they still spec'd it with a Fox 38 shortened to the short travel specifications, so that wider stanchion on it did help it seem pretty stable because it wasn't as flexy in turns with the extra weight from the e-bike motor. And of course, you're not going to feel the extra weight of that bigger fork because you've got a motor helping you out, right? So that was nice to see.
Yeah, I just wish they would bring that 38, that short one, onto bikes that aren't e-bikes. That would be super cool.
150 mil Fox 38s on all bikes.
That makes it, because you can also change the SCOR to the long travel version pretty easily. So you wouldn't even need a new fork, you would just need a new damper, which is nice about that with the Fox 38 stuff, because you can make it their long travel one with like honestly probably about $250 if we're roughly guesstimating it.
Yeah, and some labor. You're just paying for the shock and then doing the labor to swap the flip chips and the linkage and the headset. That's it.
Yeah. One thing I didn't like was the foam, the moto foam to clean the rear shock.
Yeah.
I think on a bike that's that expensive, you shouldn't need a little piece of foam in your rear linkage to clean your shock because mud won't get in. I think that's sort of like a design oversight that like they realized after they had made the bike and was like, oh no, our rear shocks are getting like clogged with mud. We need to find a fix for that. And their solution was just throw some like loose foam in the bike, which looks like packing material, and I've honestly almost thrown away that foam on a lot of bikes because I see it and I go, someone didn't grab out the packing material, and then he actually had to catch me once. He goes, dude, that's supposed to be there. And I was like, really, this little piece of foam?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. The other thing about the SCOR that I didn't like is like when you compare it like to the Heckler, the way the Heckler is designed is that the down tube, when they put the battery in the down tube to make it an e-bike, Santa Cruz kind of extended the down tube downwards towards the front wheel to create room for the battery, while SCOR kind of extended it upwards towards the inside of the top tube to create room for the battery. So in that being said, it means that the Heckler, I guess, it's gonna be easier to hit the down tube, but on the SCOR, the reason I didn't like that is because that means there wasn't really enough room to fit like a full bottle in there.
Yeah.
It's like You could fit a full bottle in there. It would be touching the top of the top tube, and it was kind of a pain to get in and out. And it was kind of annoying because it was like every time you did a drop, you did a jump, or every time you landed, you went on chattery terrain, the bottle would hit the top tube and it would make some noise, and it wasn't fantastic. So you would either you're stuck running a tiny bottle or no bottle, or living with the noise, which I'm not a big noise person.
It's an e-bike that you kind of have to have a backpack on for.
Yeah, which is fine for a lot of people. I'm just not a backpack person.
Yeah.
Yep. You think?
Well, that's fun.
It's fun.
Maybe we should move on to the Heckler.
Oh yeah. The Heckler was much more playful than the SCOR. The Heckler was a little bit more fun to like throw around and like pick your line on. Like the SCOR was more chargy. The Heckler was on the other side of things, a little bit more nimble.
They felt fairly close.
Yeah.
But it was the Heckler was more playful, but the only real reason you notice is because it's a mullet. It's got a smaller rear wheel.
Oh yeah.
So that 27.5 rear wheel, like line choice was a little easy. Techie descents. It's like you could pick your lines, you could throw it around a little bit easier, which is one of the reasons why the Heckler was so fun. But if you weren't like thinking about the fact that it does have a 27.5 rear wheel, and if it was a 29er, honestly, that and the SCOR, they would feel pretty much the same. They're really dang close bikes.
Yeah. Aren't they both have the same motor, this EPA with 85 Newton meters of torque.
Same motor.
They both, the issue I have with both these bikes is they're e-bikes through and through. Like you have to ride them as an e-bike. There's really no benefit or anything or any option to ride it without the motor turned on. Like if the motor dies out on the trail, you're gonna have a really, really bad time trying to get home.
Like you could do it, but it's noticeable. It's a 50, 60 pound bike, right?
Yeah.
They're heavy. I think the other thing along the lines of that is that their e-bikes built with the intention of, hey, we have a motor in this bike. We can kind of spec it however we want. Meaning they have really big tires. They've got big forks, lots of suspension. They are meant to descend hard. Which that's the other kind of thing is if you didn't want to ride it like an e-bike and you had some trails close by that weren't super technical, honestly, that trail would feel like you weren't really doing anything because it's just going to roll over everything in its path because they're so big and they had so much travel on them and they were so heavy that they're just going to roll over everything.
Are you saying it's too capable?
Yeah, I guess. It's the same reason why people like to ride gravel bikes on mountain bike trails, right?
Yeah.
It makes those feel sketchy and kind of fun again. SCOR does those bikes and kind of do the opposite, where if you weren't on a technical trail, they'd probably feel like too much bike.
Yeah, it's like driving a Jeep to a grocery store.
Yeah.
You don't need a Jeep. Like.
Yeah. That's where the Orbea Rise comes in, though.
Yeah, the Orbea Rise, that's a lot lighter.
Like 10, 11 pounds?
10, 15 pounds. Like, lighter than either of these. It has an EP8 that they've tuned a little bit differently with a smaller battery in it to make it that lightweight. So it only has a 65 Newton meters of torque or 60.
It's 65 Newton meters of torque at its peak, but they actually don't come tuned to 65. Most of them are actually only tuned to like 50, even in boost mode, but you can use the Shimano eTube app to boost it up to 65 if you want that extra torque.
Yeah.
But the weight of the bike is a real key thing there. You can use them on the same trails we said that aren't fun on the SCOR or the Heckler because they're so big are fun again on the Rise because it feels like a normal bike.
The other thing with the Rise, you can like turn off the motor and it's still a heavy bike, but it's a lot less heavy than a Heckler and it'll still ride well. It's still nimble. Like even on the downhills with like the SCOR and the Heckler, trying to ride it without the motor on was a burden. It wasn't that fun. With the Rise, you can take off, no assist level at all, and just have a fun descent.
The Rise is super fun.
I was amazed how well that bike whips. Like whipping it. Like usually it's like I'm not great at whips, and so even on like a heavy bike, it's scary because it's not something I can bring back. When I would jump the Rise, it never felt like a 30, 40 pound bike. It always felt like my cross country bike.
I think it was like the first like 2 or 3 times I jumped it. It was like, oh, this is a little bit heavier, but you get used to it so fast that you can compensate for it pretty much without another thought the next time, right? Where like the SCOR and the Santa Cruz are kind of always thinking about, hey, this is a heavier bike. When I go to do this jump or something, I need to kind of tug up a little bit more. That wasn't an issue on the Rise.
Yeah.
The other thing, the Rise being as light as it is, you can build out top-end Rises, like the new one especially, where they lost some weight off the frame. and they also lightened up the, and if you put the light battery in it, they're doing a 60 watt hour battery. On the very, very top end, I think the very top end Orbea Rise without pedals weighs almost less than my high tower does without a motor.
Yeah.
It's like my high tower is like 34 pounds with all repair kit and pedals, and the Rise without pedals is like 35. They're super lightweight. It's incredible.
The other great thing about the Rise is the price. Pretty much any other mountain bike in that weight range or in that price range is about $3,000 to $4,000 more.
Yeah.
With like the same build kit, like you're looking at their top end build. So all the bells and whistles is like 11.5, which is a lot for a bike. We acknowledge that, but then you're looking at other brands and they're up at 14, 15 grand for the same build. And you're like, why is Orbea so much cheaper? Is that because they're like skipping anywhere? And it's not the case. They're really solid bikes. The carbon is good. You can custom paint them for no extra cost. Like
the Myo program is really awesome.
They're a great option for someone who's like who might want an e-bike but also wants something that can function as a normal bike too. Like they tune those motors for the most natural ride feel. So like even when we were riding those, it doesn't feel like you're on an e-bike. You go out for a day, you still get really good workout and sort of forget you're on an e-bike.
Yeah, the Rises are great for like recovery days, or let's say you only have an hour after work before the sun sets, you want to do this trail, which normally takes you an hour and 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It makes things like that possible.
Same with the Heckler.
Yeah, same with the Heckler. But it feels like a normal bike. So you can jump onto it and it still feels like it feels natural to you. I think, to be granted though, with like the Rise, while it is a very great price point, we should note that like the price of all these bikes fluctuate constantly. Like they all went up super high during COVID, and now things are starting to drop off again, and who knows what it might be in the future. But even with prices fluctuating, the Rises tend to still be more affordable than other counterparts.
Yeah. I think they have more color options too, which is not a big thing.
That's true.
It's cool.
It's nice to have color options.
Yeah. More options are always better than less options.
Yeah.
Which one would you buy? What one would you wanna
Oh, that's hard. I think I had honestly the most fun on the Heckler, but I think if I were actually to own one, I'd want to own the Rise. Because the Heckler was really fun, but we were also riding it in St. George, which has technical trails. I live here in Salt Lake. There's not as many technical sections as St. George, and I think based off of where I live, I'd probably want the Rise.
So I have the two bikes. I rode the Heckler and the SCOR. Personally, when I go to ride an e-bike, it's not to have the most playful ride of my life. It's to like go far and go straight. That's fine. So in that case, I would go with the SCOR because that's full 29er, not a mullet like the Heckler. But that's just me. And I didn't get the chance to ride the Rise, but it sounds very intriguing. It sounds like a lot of fun. I think I'd really enjoy having a bike closer to the weight of a regular bike. But yeah.
I'd probably personally choose the Rise, just for like the type of riding I do. I'd love to do recon on that bike, like go up some pretty like gnarly trails. Like, good thing about the Rise is it's lighter weight, so super technical climbs, even like where an e-bike doesn't help you when you're having to hop the front wheel up, it's a little bit nicer for that. Definitely not as like point and shooty as the other two, but I'd take that drawback any day to have a e-bike that I can pedal to the top of something and have it feel like a normal bike on the way down. Like I just love the feeling of it. And even with the tuned down motor, I'm young, I should wait before I get the maximum power. But yeah, we have all these bikes in store at our Salt Lake and our Park City locations. If you have any other questions, don't hesitate to call us. You can check them out on our website at contenderbicycles.com. Thank you for tuning in.